Welcome, this is Andy Bennett of Great Plains Gravel. Today we're going to do a quick review of this. This is an Allen Sports S545 bike rack. It's a 4-bike bike rack. This is a pretty popular rack. On Amazon, this particular model is about $190, so it's at the lower end of the bike rack spectrum. Not inexpensive. There's cheaper ones out there on Amazon, but it's also not up with the big name brands like Yakima or Sturdily or that sort of thing. This rack is a receiver hitch mount, 2-inch receiver. I believe there is an adapter for a smaller hitch, but you should check that specifically. This rack is very sturdily made. The materials are heavy grade metal. You can see there the way the top part of the rack functions to have it out for use are these two steel pins. This connector pulls these pins in, allows you to rotate the rack up. Then the pins, which are spring loaded, go back into these holes, which provide a very solid attachment. This is not going to drop down by itself. Another feature of this is when it's mounted, you want to be able to open the tailgate of your truck, or if this is a different sort of a vehicle like an SUV, open the hatch. The way that works, you pull this up, that pulls this metal bar out of this slot, allows you to lean this back to that level. That allows the tailgate of the truck to open fully, so that's well engineered. And it just snaps back in that way. Typical of these sorts of racks, there's a rubberized saddle that the top tube fits in, and then a rubber strap which goes over the top tube and attaches firmly here. 2 of these, one for each one of the parts of the hitch per bike. And it has sets for 4 bikes. It's fairly challenging to get 4 bikes on here. It takes some very careful orientation, and if you're sensitive about rubbing on the frames, you probably need to have some padding material like pool noodles or things like that to make sure that they don't rub. But you can get 4 bikes on here if you really are in a pinch. I typically put 3 bikes on here at most. One tendency of this kind of rack is to allow your bike to shift like this. One thing that will minimize that is if you're using a cable type bike lock that you've looped up through, that will help. I often use bungee cords also to keep things from rocking around as much. This particular lock actually came with the rack when we bought it and works fairly well. There's a loop down here that you can hook it through to make sure you're attaching to something fairly secure. Then you can loop it around the frame. Just showing how I bungee cord the wheels together to minimize the movement of the wheels. Not required, makes me feel better though. We've been using this rack pretty consistently for about 2.5 years to transport bikes with this truck, and are fully satisfied. It's not the fanciest rack out there, it's not the most stylish, but it does the job. It transports the bike safely and securely. If you're going to put 4 bikes on the rack, you may need some padding material like cut up pool noodles or things like that, just to provide a little bit of padding between the frames. But the rack does its job very effectively. When you compare it to some of the less expensive racks you see on Amazon, I've never seen one in person, but they appear to be pretty light. They list the weight shipping wise as 35 pounds. For a rack like this, that isn't really a lot. When you think, even if you're doing fairly light bikes, you're putting 4 20-pound bikes on it, 80 pounds out on the end of a little bit of a lever arm. I'd spend a little bit more money to get a rack like this off the top. It has aged pretty well. Notice these were red originally, they've turned a little bit pink, but most of the plastic parts have held up extremely well. Matter of fact, they've all held up well. The only change we've noticed is just the color of these red plastic bits on the ends. So in summary, this is a bike rack I can recommend. You can carry 3 to 4 bikes on it without too much trouble. It's sturdy, it's done the job, it's not terribly expensive. If you like this content, please hit the like button and subscribe to see more in the future. And if you're curious about this Genesis Vagabond bike or this Nuclear Sunrise Stitchworks silo feedback, take a look at my channel for more information, and we'll see you in the next video.